Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of FitzRupee Cast featuring DoW2 Retribution. With the long holiday weekend behind us, I am ready to get back to casting. For those of you over here in the States, of course, you know it was Labor Day weekend, and I know my weekend was amazing. I hope yours was too. So let's go ahead. Before we get started, don't forget we have a DLC contest happening right now. We've got the screenshot competition for DLC, and then if you want a copy of the game, give me your excuse as to why you don't have it. Of course, full details on that over on the beginning of episode 67. And in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the dark and tenebrous landscape of Ashes of Typhon. Once again, we've got a great one-on-one game happening over here. And we have an Eldar mirror. I don't actually think I've ever done an Eldar mirror on this show, so let's take a look at our players. This is Boby over here on the blue side, is the Warp Spider Exarch. I believe he also goes by Boba Fett from time to time, so maybe today he's Boby Fett. And then on the red side, Mr. ShadowsOfWarp as the Eldar Farseer with that yellow paint scheme over here. So we're going to dive right into the game and get rolling here. Hopefully ShadowsOfWarp is here. There he goes. Farseer hits the fleet of foot and charges out of here. Now this is, of course, a very large map. We've got the VP lane kind of down here with a bunch of requisition, 2 rec and the VPs straight across from each other. I feel like on this larger map, the Warp Spire is going to have the advantage, at least early on. Of course, all Eldar have access to Eldar webway gates, so that will be a great boon to either player if they decide to use those effectively. And we have both players bring in a pair of Guardian squads onto the field to start the game off here. So nothing fancy on capping orders so far. We're going to have to see how this plays out. I feel like the Warp Spider is going to have the advantage in the early game as far as just his general abilities and things like that goes. He does have, of course, things like phase armor and such like that in Tier 3, but I feel overall the Farseer's support abilities and, of course, being able to bring the Seer Council on the field if necessary later on with all her buffs. Once she gets geared up and rolling, I feel like her late game prowess is a bit stronger, especially when it comes to direct combat. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Banshee's coming on the field for ShadowsOfWarp. Looks like Boby is choosing not to go that route. Instead, dropped a couple quick generators. We'll probably be seeing either Rangers or a Shuriken platform coming onto the field here soon. Farseer trying to force off some squads early on. Got the Guardians out of there quickly. Another squad of Guardians kind of hanging back there, sitting behind the cover. They know Warp Spider's coming. Warp Spider does choose to go ahead and just start a little fisticuffs battle there. As soon as those Guardians fall out of cover too, he does go back into range stance and then right back to melee once they hit cover. So some good little micro there from Boby. Banshees are closing in, but of course Warp Spider's a little low for teleporting right now. He's going to have to get out of there. Guardians trying to come in to support. Looks like they're, yes, dropping a grenade in the approach path of those Banshees, but they kind of were a bit behind, got split up by that cover actually, and that worked out to their advantage. But it looks like they bought just enough time for that Warp Spider to get enough energy for a second jump and fall back from that without having to retreat. And really, even when your Warp Spider is this low, you kind of want to try to keep him on the field because he is such a dominating map control unit that if you can just keep him running around and capping or decapping, it really makes a difference. So battle equipment for both of Boby's squads. ShadowsOfWarp, no upgrades for his squads yet. Of course, Boby does have the power lead because he dropped these 2 generators right out of the gate. And again, we can see now that this Warp Spider is still on the field, force those Banshees off, stop them from capping. He's going to have to teleport out, and a predicament right now, though, because if he retreats right now, that Farseer might get a couple swings and force him out of there. She's under lots of range fire, pretty much Boby's whole army right here, pouring some shurikens and sniper shots into her. Warp Spider's trying to just run around and bait her into staying a little too long. Luckily, ShadowsOfWarp didn't take the bait, fell back when he needed to, but now has a triple cap and bought some excellent time right there with that engagement. Farseer tying up the entirety of Boby's army and then just taking the entire map. 3-0 cap right now for Mr. ShadowsOfWarp. Banshee's getting their aspect upgrade, which will be very crucial. Gonna need that fleet of foot and that Banshee scream. Here comes a nice looking retreat grenade on a squad of Guardians. Hits spot on, takes out 3 models. A nice little win there for Boby after losing most of the map. It'll help to have a little bit of rec lead there for his opponent. Now with his battle equipment, I've actually been seeing recently, I feel like in a lot of the Eldar games I've played, battle equipment's kind of been getting tossed to the side in favor of other tech. So we're going to have to see how that works out. I think on this map it's especially important as there is no green cover at all, and there's just kind of a lot of wide open space, see by these VPs or by the power farms. There's a couple little yellow bits of cover here and there, but it's not particularly effective, especially with these more frail Eldar units. And with Rangers on the field for Boby, Shadows can certainly drop some energy shields and prevent a lot of that sniper bleed so long as he can hold some map and get some time to set those up. Banshee's being used on the far side of the map. You can see their little red dot over there while the Farseer gets engaged. Nice looking kinetic shot, knocking that Farseer down. She's too low and probably going to have to fall back. There she goes. Warp Spider in the meantime upgraded with a heavy gauge Death Spinner, which will allow him to focus down single models. In the meantime, these Banshees still decapping, and this is actually a really good position for these Banshees to be in. If, by chance, Shadows can force an engagement up top and get one of these squads low, those Banshees can hop right into the retreat path and take them out. Unfortunately, for Shadows of Warp, it looks like Mr. Boby is aware of his little illicit activities on the back end of this map right here. Dropping a grenade spike while those Banshees try to engage these Guardians. It's still going to be too much firepower. They hit the Banshee Scream and retreat. A good choice of plays by Shadows of Warp. Managed to prevent that last grenade going down. Didn't lose any Banshee models and suppressed everything for the time being to get those Banshees out of there. So they were in a bit of a tricky spot. Of course, with two upgraded Guardian squads, having Banshees behind their lines is dangerous, but then your Banshees also have to retreat through that possible 2 grenades. So it's a double-edged sword most certainly. Mr. Boby needs to get some map here, though. That first initial push by Shadows of Warp's Farseer really cost Boby some serious VP bleed. He's down by about 140 VPs right now. And headed into Tier 2. He's got lots of wreck, though. I mean, really, if he had chose to maybe bring a Shuriken squad onto the field or something like that, really go for a little of everything here, I think that would have worked out well for him. Would have allowed him to lock down some map and cause some hurt. Grenades going down from both sides. A nice looking shot there. Didn't actually take too much out. Looks like it managed to take a single Guardian model. And then, of course, Boby's chipped off some Farseer health there. Meanwhile, she's just running around in a little melee fray here with all these Guardians. Banshee's coming in with a nice flank, though. Scaring off the second squad of Guardians. And these Rangers are in a bad spot. These Banshees can shred those relatively easily. You see the heavy gauge Death Spinner going off, taking a couple of Banshees out there and knocking them down. And it looks like, wow, those Rangers are actually going to escape. And that was a bit expensive for those Banshees. 4 Banshee models going down right there. Rangers managed to escape. Boby lost quite a few Guardians, but he's got so much wreck, it's really not too big a deal. A grenade goes down to force off that Warp Spider. And in the meantime, Guardians moving up to recap the power and try to keep Boby's rear resources to a minimum. So you can see all these energy shields up for Shadows of Warp, so he can really defend this kind of whole area right here relatively easily, as Mr. Boby has an entirely ranged army at the moment. And he's continuing that, going into Tier 2, getting himself instantly a squad of Warp Spires and a precognitive Bright Lance here, hoping to see a vehicle come onto the field, but Shadows also going for Warp Spiders. Of course, vehicles in Eldar mirrors can be very, very dangerous because Warp Spires can disable with those haywire grenades so effectively and then just line everything up for failure right out of the gate here. So another retreat grenade, not quite hitting its target, which is unfortunate because those Guardians were bunched up very nicely. Had he dropped that just a split second sooner, he would have been able to take out at least several of those models retreating right there. So Warp Spider's jumping around, now engaging the Farseer. Boby, realizing he had plenty of wreck, decided to go ahead and pop that node cap right there. Farseer in a bit of a little indecisive moment, not sure if she should engage or not, cost herself a little bit too much damage. You never want to be indecisive when dealing with Warp Spiders. You have to know whether or not you're going to push the attack or not, because once you're committed, those Warp Spiders are either going to win or lose it for you. And if you can't take them out, you're going to be taking a lot of damage on retreat as well. Farseer, or sorry, not Farseer, Warp Spider over here once again engaging in melee with these Guardians. Guardians do have a Warlock right now, though. In the meantime, Warp Spider's Brood coming in to help that Warp Spider out. Oh no, and the Warlock knocks out Warp Spider flat on his back. They drop a grenade to stop those Warp Spiders from firing, and then go ahead and hit the retreat. 256 to 494. Boby's doing a reasonable job of keeping Shadows of Warp at bay, but he's not holding any map at all, really. Those Rangers in a bad position once again behind those Banshees, and the Banshees realize that they're going straight for the Rangers. Warp Spiders teleport in as well, and Rangers are not getting out of there in one piece. Now there's tons of range damage over here, though. Both Guardian squads and the Warp Spiders now in here, and both players taking advantage of these energy shields. Of course, that's one drawback to those energy shields, is if you place them incorrectly, you can guarantee that your opponent's going to use them as well. You can see these yellow circles, crack shot actually being used on those Warp Spiders. I think they probably could have tried to pursue that Farseer and finished her off, but looks like she snuck out of there well enough on her own. Warp Spider getting caught out of position by Guardians down bottom and falling back. Guardians destroyed the central power node that Boby had built and decapping that central power. Boby going for a Falcon. That's going to be a tricky thing to play right here. He's going to have to play that, I feel, somewhat reserved when it first comes out. Because, of course, as I mentioned before, there is going to be a Haywire Grenade, I'm sure, on the field as soon as Shadows of Warp spots that Falcon. And with that combined with the Banshees, of course, the Banshee Exarch doing heavy melee, if the Farseer also chooses to upgrade to her Singing Spear, that Falcon's going to be in a lot of trouble if it takes a Haywire Grenade. However, Boby did lose his Rangers in that last engagement, so Shadows of Warp can really feel free at this point to start dropping Farseer gates around wherever he can and start using that stealth approach to get these Banshees into combat. Oh man! Banshee Exarch getting turned into bits right there from that heavy gate Death Spinner. She got singled out and knocked down flat on her back, and that was the last that anyone ever saw of her. Shadows of Warp heading into Tier 3, way ahead of Boby though. Boby choosing for that expensive Falcon, and I think it will really make a difference if he can kind of play reserved with it and use it to keep these squads on the field, because that's what he does need right now, is some field presence. He needs to be able to stay out here and get these VPs and make up for that big disadvantage he's got right there. Nice looking retreat grenade, but surprisingly didn't really do much damage at all.
As ever, we serve the craft world.
So a good push right here. You can see Shadows got plenty of power up. Both players really haven't been able to push either power farm at all this game. Really been a solid back and forth. Eldar is so quick that it's really hard, especially I feel like in an Eldar mirror, to get out there and get that power bash without putting yourself in a dangerous spot. Warp Spider in the meantime getting improved targeters. So we can see Boby's just going for all ranged all the time, keeping that going. Farseer gate is up now, and there goes the stealth, providing an excellent staging area for stealth ambushes. Of course, those Farseer gates are very valuable, especially without anything on the field to detect. Unfortunately, he chose a kind of poor target. Those Warp Spiders are going to run around and do as they please. Banshee's not really scaring them too much. Falling back to some more supported lines back here. You can see Boby actually finally did choose to get a Shuriken weapon team on the field, and I think that'll really help him kind of control these Banshees and Farseer, as so far they've been running around unabated. Without the Rangers' kinetic shot to keep those Banshees on the floor for just a split second or two, it's hard to get the fire into them that they need before those Banshees close in and cause some serious havoc. Farseer falling back, a grenade spike goes down, but unfortunately hits the energy shield and doesn't do too much. Guardians need to hop inside of that Falcon, but several Banshees going down right there, just way too much range damage for them to just approach on their own like that. A bit of a misplay, I feel like, by Shadows of Warp, sending a lone melee squad in against all this. And this is the perfect time. Boby, I feel like, really needs to charge in here and take some map back, take out some of this power, or do something about that. Both of these Guardian squads down bottom. Shadows of Warp been doing a good job of committing minimal force to tie up maximum army over here. Really making Boby commit a lot to just stop those Banshees and Farseer, as they are such a threat. And then allowing the two Guardian squads to cap throughout the map. Warp Spider getting dangerously low in that engagement, but not doing too bad. Grenade goes down right in the middle of the Warp Spiders. They warp out from under it just at the last second. Oh man, if they had actually teleported the other direction, they probably could have finished off that Guardian squad, but you never really want to teleport into a position that you don't know, especially against Eldar. They could have warp gates, even if they just retreated not that long ago. They could have a warp gate just waiting over there, and those Warp Spiders could have teleported right into the middle of a squad of Banshees. So I can back up that decision ultimately. Anyways, you can see once again stealth coming in here. doing a lot of damage, picking off 2 Warp Spider members right away on that ambush right there. Those Warp Spiders didn't really have to retreat, though. They had the Falcon right there. They had the Wraith Lord now on the field coming up behind it, already equipped with its Shuriken Cannon. They really would have been fine to either hop in the Falcon or just stay on the field and reinforce. And Boby is kind of closing this gap, although very slowly. So he really needs to try to focus on staying on the map as much as possible. Boby doesn't have too much red. He's actually been using Crackshot he's used it a couple times, I think, so far here, which has really been helping out keeping these Banshees down. The 2 Guardians, again, just being used as capping squads on this VP lane. You can see Boby has his 1 squad over here behind an energy shield, trying to wait for the approach. Here comes another stealth engagement right here. Oh no, the Shuriken's in a lot of trouble. It's not even facing the right direction. Even if it did, it wouldn't matter because it wouldn't see those Banshees. Guide going down on the Banshees as the engagement starts, and look at that Shuriken just get annihilated. There it goes. It didn't stand a chance. Brightlant's in a lot of trouble right now too, but it is going to get out of there, I think. But a perfect play right there. In the meantime, it looks like Shadows did lose one of his Guardian squads down bottom here while that engagement was happening. But that's not going to be enough. I feel like that Shuriken might have been worth taking out more than losing that Guardian squad, but it was a trade. Shadows of Warp not having too much out, but of course here comes the big bad Avatar. This is really the time I feel like that Boby needs to push right here. He's got a Falcon, he's got this Walker, he's got a full army on the field right now. He needs to push some map, try to find maybe 1 or 2 of these gates and knock those out, and then maybe even take out some power. It doesn't matter, I guess, too much at this point because Shadows does have tons of power on the field. He's had a secondary farm here with an extra generator pulling in resources for the majority of this game so far. But here we go. Boby's recognized that his enemy had to fall back completely. Doesn't have too much left and has taken a nice chunk of the map here. 214 to 305. Boby down to a deficit of 100 VPs. And we've been seeing some pretty dexterous play here so far from these Eldar players. You know, when you're playing against Eldar, you really have to be on top of your micro, I feel. Especially as Eldar. Eldar kind of, most people would argue Eldar is one of the more micro-intensive races to play in this game. So looks like he did find one of the warp gates, took out one, took out the secondary farm, took all 3 of the VPs. In the meantime, Warp Spider tearing up Guardians over here. Oh no, but we have another stealth attack coming down, a perfectly extemporaneous play right here. Everything moved in right as soon as he spotted that Falcon. Banshee's in a little bit of trouble there, but as soon as he spotted those vehicles up on his warp gate, Shadows of Warp knew exactly what to do. Took his staging area right here, stealthed his whole army, had a Haywire Grenade, Banshees, and a Singing Spear on his Farseer, and that's exactly what I was afraid to see, and there is the shell of that unfortunately placed Falcon. Boby had just hit Tier 3, and he needed to have that shield up on that Falcon before he got it into any major engagements. Warspire's narrowly dodging a Wailing Doom of that Avatar. Avatar taking lots of damage in the meantime. Haywire went down. Hopefully this Avatar is not too brazen. It's going to have to fall back here, I think, taking Brightlands fire, Wraithguard hits, and Warspider fire as well. You can see lots of HP already falling down. Here comes the Banshees, though. Those Warspiders are going to have to fall back. Brightlands in a lot of trouble, too. It should probably hit retreat right now before anything bad happens. But it's choosing to stick around and continue to fire on that Avatar. Haywire's gone down on the Wraith Lord. It is taking lots of damage. Banshee very low. Oh no, but here comes another Wailing Doom. They need to move right now. And oh no, Brightlance obliterated. Guardians and Warspiders everywhere. Wraith Lord now unsupported behind enemy lines with an Avatar in hot pursuit. That's really going to be unfortunate. Warspider went down on the other side of the map to Guardians and the Farseer. That was a rough engagement there for Boby. Lost a lot of stuff. That Wraith Lord is unfortunately, I'm almost positive, going to go down right here as well. One more swing from that Avatar, and that's going to be all she wrote. It's going to try to pick off a couple of Guardians to make its life a little more worthwhile here at the end. Gets a sync kill to guarantee at least one finish right there. And another nice looking special attack before the Avatar takes the final shot. And down goes that Walker. So Boby loses both of his vehicles and a squad right there. Guardians capping right next to the burning husk. of that Wraith Lord Walker. So both players down to 3 squads and an Avatar. Avatar's coming out for Boby as well right now. But Boby, with that triple cap, really took out all the VPs right now for Shadows of Warp. Shadows of Warp going to have to play very carefully for the rest of the map as he is down to 54 VPs. With Warp Spires behind that energy shield, though, unfortunately, Boby can't really approach. And just look at the difference these have made. If you just watch the first few engagements and some of them that we're at right now, those energy shields really have a controlling effect when you're dealing with these high damage output squads. Guardians do a surprising amount of range damage later game. You can see their level 3 upgraded with, of course, their equipment and a Warlock. I mean, with their ability, and especially with the Warp Spider dropping crack shot as often as he has been, those Guardians are a definite threat. So now with Boby's Avatar on the field, he's going to push this side of the map, going for that contested VP. Guardian's still just keeping an eye on his natural down there. Doesn't want to overextend right now. He lost way too much in those past couple engagements. Here goes the Haywire Grenade. Warp Spider's trying to force off the opposing Warp Spider squad. Oh, and they go down! Big loss there for Shadows of Warp. Those Warp Spiders really needed to stay on the field to continue harassing and pouring range fire into these softer Eldar range squads. Banshee's now in pursuit, but oh no, phase shift goes off for the Warp Spider. Unfortunately, I think that's a bad idea. I'm not sure if Boby thought maybe those Warp Spiders were out of range of it, because now the Banshees have closed in. It did buy them time for another teleport, and they're going to have to retreat right away, lest those Banshees annihilate the entire squad. Oh no! Guardian's getting knocked down by the Banshees. I'm not sure they're going to get out of there now. Banshees chopping all but one member up, closing in, dropping Fleet of Foot. 1 or 2 more swings, and it's going down 12 HP. Is it going? It is going to escape with just 13 HP. Very fortunate for Boby indeed. He really needed to not lose that squad, and it worked out for him. In the meantime, his Guardians once again getting a successful defense on his natural VP. Avatar's duking it out over here against one another. Unfortunately, they're just sitting out here by themselves, and we can already see that Shadows of Warp Avatar is much lower, and he recognizes that, decides to fall back to the support of his Farseer. If he drops Guide and uses the Farseer to attack this Avatar, he can probably even it out and force it off of the map for the time being. So, oh no, is that a, yes, it's an Eldritch Storm coming down, and oh no! Oh, a couple precision lightning bolt strikes and an entire Guardian squad into bits right there. Oh, just a little splash in the storm. A splash of red in a storm of blue. Very unfortunate for Boby's second Guardian squad there. So now both players once again down to 2 squads and an Avatar. Shadows of the Warp, I feel like, was on the back foot there for a while, but that one engagement really brought it back. Banshees once again coming in with that stealth approach and finding these range squads out of position. We can see how useful those Farseer gates have been getting these Banshees into melee. Early on in the game, they were having a heck of a time trying to do that, but once those Rangers went down and the Warp gates came up, those Banshees really causing some serious hurt. They've taken out at least a couple squads and, you know, those 2 vehicles, obviously. Haywire, however, going down on Shadows of Warp Avatar. It is very low. If the Avatar goes down here, that may well be the game for Shadows of the Warp. He's got a tenacious grab on these last 53 victory points, determined that he's not going to lose it, trying to even it out, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. Farseer barely gets out of there. Avatar just a few seconds short of a final death blow. Another Warp Gate, way forward position here, forward Warp Gate on Boby's natural VP. That's going to make a big difference, I think, so long as he can continue to reinforce over here. But there is a Fire Prism coming out on the field for Boby. I think if he uses that correctly, he can really lock down the VPs. Fire Prism, excellent at holding map and knock out these last few VPs. 135 to 53. Banshees once again cloaked and charging in on these Guardians. They're probably going to get out of there, but it's going to cost them quite a few models. Shadows of Warp repurchased his Warp Spires, bringing those back onto the field, knowing he needs some mobile ranged firepower, and of course that crucial Haywire Grenade to kind of immobilize these Avatars and disable them from doing too much. Warp Spire's almost maxed out at level 4. That is never what you want to see. That is just some serious anti-infantry damage. We see the Farseer's first shot go down and obliterate a Guardian, knock the whole squad down, and force them out of there. In the meantime, it looks like we have another precision anti-vehicle strike coming in here. Warp Spiders move in. Oh, and that's the perfect. Oh, I love it. That is how I want to see phase shift used. That is a perfect defensive phase shift. I love that right there. That fire prism was most certainly destroyed had that phase shift not go off. But a good play keeps the fire prism alive, and now with the Avatar moving in, he can support that and take it out. In the meantime, however, with everything committed down here, the Avatar and Farseer are running around up top. We can see a final, little sad Warp Spider get tossed aside there off the edge of the Avatar's sword. Avatar needs to take out this warp gate before everything comes back in, and here it goes. Kane's Wrath going off right now, knocking Guardians all over the place. Banshee's moving in, but they're not going to be able to do anything over here. Not really a good choice against Warp Spider and his brood. Unfortunately, the Warp Spider goes down 67 to 53 with a triple cap for Shadows of Warp. Shadows of Warp not letting anything go. Not budging a single inch on his map control right now. Grenades going down, taking out the Banshee Exarch. But man, look, this warp gate just constantly spawning Eldar for Shadows of Warp. Shadows of Warp still has the Avatar and Farseer guarding this top point, and another warp gate going down. Boby has lots of resources. He needs to bring another squad on the field or something. He has the red for Warp Spider call-in. That could really help. Another nice-looking Wailing Doom go off there. But there's the GG from Boby, and that's the game. Wow, an excellent comeback there. I thought Boby was going to turn it around, but didn't quite pull it off. Shadows of Warp using these warp gates and just excellent unit placement. Had these two squads over here. Farseer supporting the Avatar on her own. And then these past few engagements, just every time he sent a squad home, he popped it right back out of this forward warp gate and locked down this whole lane excellently. And just good play by both sides. That was just what I wanted to see from an Eldar mirror. Some good Warp Spider play, good Farseer play, good use of globals and abilities, and just all around an awesome game. You can see that last bit of fire going down as the Warp Spiders teleported out on that Avatar. I really feel like Boby had a moment to win that, most definitely, but he lost that engagement up top where he lost both vehicles and his Brightlands platform when that Avatar came in. Was just too much for him to handle, and once that happened, Shadows of Warp just didn't budge. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the game. Don't forget about the DLC contest. Feel free to subscribe, leave some comments, talk about the game, discuss my commentary, any of that stuff. I always appreciate it. Anyways, this is Red-Rupee. I'll be catching you guys next time.